If we examine the program of life, the process of giving birth, of diversification, we can see that at the core of life, of evolution, of the program that is reality, is a process. And the process begins with sympathy, which is the state of the child. A child is born into a given environment, a given culture, a given family, a given ecology, and must adapt to its environment because of the law of mass. The law of mass dictates that when a smaller object encounters a larger object, that when a pinball collides with a bowling ball, that the pinball goes flying, that the bowling ball continues largely on its current trajectory, absorbing the energy of the pinball, but continuing the law of mass that says that that which is smaller must adapt to that which is bigger. And so the child learns the language of the culture, which is the thought algorithm of the culture. The child learns what is necessary to survive physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, logistically. The child learns through openness, through sympathy by absorption. The adolescent moves into the state of antithesis. All systems are flawed. All shapes are imperfect. All structures have inefficiencies inherent in the nature of structure. All systems are flawed. And having gone through the state of unconditional openness, the sympathy of the child, we move into the antipathy, the rebellion of the adolescent, which is the rebellion against the innate flaw within the system. Here's the system, we've lived it. We've watched the hypocrisy of our parents. We've watched the gap between the stated values and the way that they're embodied. We've listened to the words that this is the way to do things, and we've felt uncomfortable at this point or at that point in that system. We've observed pain and suffering. That is innate in any system, but we've observed the failure, the pain and suffering in our system. And so you move into a state of rebellion. Now, the child is an unconditional yes. It will learn Japanese, it will learn Chinese, it will learn English, it will learn Danish. Every single one of those languages influences thought because the language is built on paradigms that are relevant to the cultures that formed the language. And those paradigms are boxes, like the boxes in this camera, and that which does not fit inside the camera is outside the box. It doesn't fit within the paradigm, and so there's no language for it. It is the willfully enforced unconscious through an absence of language, which dictates the focus of consciousness. Because all consciousness is witnessed through the lens of language. You cannot think about a table without thinking the word table. You need language to complete a thought. So as each culture in human history, as each cult in human history, a culture is a habit of thinking, feeling, speaking, and doing. A cultural identity is a habituated response of thought, feeling, words, and action. And we recognize a culture. How do we know someone has been influenced by a Southeast Asian culture? Well, if they're using chopsticks rather than a fork, we say, aha, that was not an original invention of that individual. An individual did not, at 2 years old, try 20, 30 different eating implements. They tried with their hands. They said, not for me. Then they tried with a big shovel. They realized, it's a little bit too much food to get in my mouth. I'd rather do this. The 2-year-old did not have an objective evaluation of all eating possibilities and conclude, I think I'd like to have 2 little sticks and pinch my food and put it in like this, and I think I'd like to hold it like this and do this. No, they copied it from what? The cult around them. The cultural identity, the habit, the dominant habit around them was people were eating with little sticks. The dominant culture around them were people were lifting cold metal utensils and sharp points and sticking them in their mouth and doing it just right so it didn't pierce the skin, poke the tongue. And when they did it like that, the people around them said, oh, good boy, good girl. In other words, if you want to survive, if you want cultural rank, if you want to ascend within this cult, you must copy our way of doing things. No, that's not how we do things. This is how we do things. Yeah, but what if that? No. Just do things the way that we do things because we do them that way. Because I said so is the ultimate frustrated parent's refrain. Because I said so, because I'm doing it. Do it to copy me. And the child does. They do learn the vocabulary within the language of the parent. The parent does learn the vocabulary and the language of their cult. And a cult identity is born. Now, within culture, there's 2 distinct entities, or there's 2 distinctions that are useful to differentiate that which is intelligent culture and that which is destructively cult-like. So the cult-like element in culture is unconscious, repetitious, destructive, and is enforced blindly. We do it because we do it, and that's why we do it. We do it because it was done before, and it was done before because that's the right way of doing it. And so we do it the right way, like it was done before, and end of story. No more analysis needed. We are a cult, and you have to conform to our cult of thought, our cult of feeling, our cult of word, our cult of action. You must conform, or you don't belong. We will not ensure your survival. We will not respect you. We will not give you rank. We will not vote for you to be the mayor. We will not listen to what you have to say. We will not buy your service or product because you're not conforming to the cult. Now, the culture, the chore part, you have cult and then you have chore. The cult is the self-referential dogma, which ultimately becomes the most destructive aspect of the cult. Does more harm than good, as it loses synchronization with the underlying reality and the underlying human drive to feel sustainably better and avoid feeling chronically worse. At one point, almost all behavior, at one point, made at least one person feel sustainably better and helped them avoid feeling sustainably worse. Now, if that person was a tyrant in a cult where the strongest and most violent person was the de facto leader out of fear, and that person, for example, enjoyed raping little girls, and the parents didn't enjoy having their heads cut off, and so they offered up their little girls to the tyrant, well, that became a tradition. That became a cult norm. The strongest person seizes power. People who don't want to fight the strongest person feel afraid. The strongest person explores their curiosity in a sociopathic manner. Other people appease the strongest person because they don't want to die. And so that is the cult norm. Well, that's the way it is. And it's been that way because we did that before and we did it before that. And so that's the way it is. Don't buck the system. But when you look at the chore part of culture, the intelligent analysis, the question, the conscious analysis, is this the most intelligent pattern to bring the most amount of well-being per unit of energy invested? Because if every single person's innate drive is to feel sustainably better and avoid feeling chronically worse, number one, if the possibility field is biggest in synergistic collaboration. Now, you may have seen those interesting flags in North Korea or China where thousands upon thousands of military troops in exact synchronization create different languages, different images by raising pink or red or yellow handkerchiefs, etc., such that viewed from a distance, it's the equivalent of a very large television, like a 4K television, where you have 4,000 pixels. Well, if you have 4,000 people all holding different colored handkerchiefs and synchronized with music exactly, you get a very large 4K TV made with handkerchiefs. Well, that possibility field, in this case, perhaps indoctrinated, perhaps coerced, the collaboration of thousands of people towards one project, towards one goal, is infinitely more potent than an isolated individual. So you could say that if the goal mathematically, as a species, is to move towards sustainable well-being for more people, then the mathematics leads us towards partnership and towards synergy. Because what can be done with 1,000 people is exponentially bigger than the sum of the parts of 1,000 individuals. Now, we have the mythology, for example, in the United States, of the lone individual, the self-made man, usually, and the chauvinism of the cult, the self-made man did it all on his own. But this is, of course, a complete fabrication. What, the Marlboro Man, right? Riding his horse, smoking his own cigarette. Nobody's going to tell him what to do. Except he's riding a horse. Except he learned how to ride a horse from other people. Except he obtained the horse from other people. Except he used money invented by other people to buy his Marlboros, his cigarettes. Except the printing industry, which he had nothing to do with, printed the package on the cigarette. Except farmers farming cotton, developing an industry over hundreds of years, formed the paper of the cigarette. The cotton industry is inherent in that isolated, rugged individual. In other words, there is nothing about this mystique delusion that does not link to the entire universe. Gravity is required to cooperate, or he'll float off into the sky. The horse needs training and needs to decide to cooperate. Life needs to cooperate. If the horse dies during that commercial, he's not very independent, isn't he? He's riding along and his horse collapses. Well, then he needs vets to bring in, resuscitate the horse or bring in a new horse so he can continue the mystique, right? I'm a rugged, isolated individual who doesn't need anyone. Except you need the planet, except you need the trees, except you die without water. It's an amazing fiction that anyone is isolated in any way at all. You cannot justify that fiction scientifically. You can only justify it culturally, because cults don't play by the rules. They're not rational. They're not sane. And cults maintain their dogmatic identities by tyrannically censoring the truths that erode their basis for dogma. So the dogma of the rugged male individual, how you become more rugged by putting smoke in your lungs, is beyond any scientific comprehension. You just die sooner, but regardless of that, the myth of the rugged individual is just that, a completely fabricated myth. What about the spurs on that rugged individual? What? Did that rugged individual invent metal smithing? Mine the steel? Train the steel workers? Put the children to bed? Or send them off to daycare so that the steel workers could go to work? And what about the automobile industry that drove the workers to the steel factory so that another factory could create metal spurs so that the Marlboro Man could pretend to be independent, when he couldn't have done even that commercial, even come up with the delusion of a 30-second commercial, he couldn't have pulled it off without millions of generations of human beings before, who had to live and have children and develop all those subcategories of industries. Is he wearing matted wool sheared from his own sheep? No, he's wearing jeans, which means the entire jean industry, the fabric industry, the shipping container industry, all had to exist so that he could look like a rugged individual. which he doesn't look like a rugged individual. If you look scientifically at any single point on that entire tableau, you'd say that 99.9% of it has nothing to do with him at all. He didn't make the mountains. He didn't make time. He didn't make space. He didn't give birth to a horse. He couldn't replicate a horse if he was paid billions. He didn't raise the horse. He didn't roll the cigarettes. He didn't print the wrapper. He didn't even buy or invent the television industry that's giving him his job, which he's doing to please other people. And that's how the myth of the Marlboro Man gets made. The rugged individual. Oh, I want to be like that. Not depend on anyone, except the shipping container industry, except gravity, except water, except animals, except the entire planet, except the tobacco industry, except the inventors and printers of money who exchange except every goddamn thing on the entire planet. I don't want to depend on anything except all of it, all the time, in all ways, 99.9% of the time. But because the rugged individual appeals to the cult identity at some level, all of that information is suppressed in order to maintain the mystique. It's completely bogus. And the adolescent, as you're going into the antipathy, realizes the emperor has no clothes. It's a lie. The whole thing is a big fucking lie. My parents are full of shit. My government is full of shit. The food that I'm told is healthy by my FDA, etc., is full of shit. The medical system that's supposed to cure me is killing. So the third leading cause of illness and death is the side effects from medicine. It's completely unfair, racist, bigoted, chauvinistic. It's an atrocity upon humanity. That's what a cult is. And so you go from the unconditional acceptance to the unconditional rejection, to the complete reactive rejection of anything. I want no part of it. I hate you. I wish I'd never been born. I want nothing to do with my parents. The education system is a joke. So, sympathy and antipathy. Now, what's going on here in the game of life? Now, in the game of life, what is the game of life? What is the game? What are we all playing at? Well, there's a couple of things that happen. One of them is that over time, depending on what metrics are measured, of course, because we can only pay attention to what we can observe. We can only observe what we can measure. So depending on what is observed and measured, we see steady improvement towards deification. 2,000 years ago, some rebels, they weren't happy about the status quo in their cult. They weren't happy with the status quo in their religion. So they rebelled and formed the Christian religion. Ours is like this, it's not like that, right? And you have to have a deity, you have to have an ideal to differentiate yourself from another deity, another ideal. Because that's really what's up for grabs, is how will the cult be defined? How will the cult be formed? Who will run the cult? Why will they run the cult? What's the ideal? And once that is determined, that is what is deified. So God the Father is the first ideal at the time. So we're dealing with masculinity. So that takes us towards outer. That takes us towards male. That takes us towards bigger. Takes us towards faster. Why do we deify males? Well, they run faster than females. They throw a javelin farther, statistically speaking, than females. They're taller than females. They fight more ruthlessly than females. So we're talking about physical prowess is deified. And we're going to deify thought, which is the masculine counterpart to feelings, meaning all feelings generate thoughts, and all thoughts generate feelings. And neither makes any sense without the other. Thoughts have no meaning without feeling. And feelings have no meaning without thoughts. The meaning comes when you say, I am hurt because you slapped me in the face. I'm hurt for no reason, has no meaning. I have this thought with zero feeling, no meaning. If you don't have any reaction, physiologically, emotionally, and where's the difference? No thought has any meaning. The meaning comes when they come together. But in a chauvinistic cult, we will deify the thought and demonize the feeling that is inherently linked and necessary to create meaning. We will do it for emotional reasons. We will censure emotionality, too sensitive, too emotional. You sometimes get people saying that's too rational. You're thinking too much. But mostly, in a chauvinistic culture, it's feeling too much, too sensitive. Too sensitive to good ideas? No, too sensitive to your feelings. You're too connected to your feminine side. Doesn't matter if you're a female, a male, you're too connected to your feelings. Be more detached and think like we do. That's just the way life is, because we did it that way. So God, a male, a white male, even though Jesus was black, was in a Muslim country, probably had curly afro, even though that's what white guys now give birth to black kids. Anyway, but he's white more than black. Well, certainly once Christianity moved into the West and settled there, well, he had to be white. We can't have the deification be something physically impossible for us to do. How inferior would we feel if God was black and none of us could be as black as God? Would we be painting our faces to be more godlike? So God was white, God was male, God was powerful, all powerful. What does that mean? Well, he throws a javelin more than any person. He's stronger. He's all powerful. He's all knowing. He's all seeing. All powerful, all knowing, all seeing. And he's angry. He's a man and he's angry. Well, he would get Donald Trump. The deification of a certain subset of values. He's tall, always angry about something, not too concerned with reality, seeks revenge at every turn. Now, why do we elect someone that embodies the values of the Christian deification? And what's interesting is once you deify a certain subset of values, whatever they are, the cult moves towards them and rewards those who do. The cult moves towards them and rewards those who do. So then we have the phenomena of becoming more powerful, becoming more knowledgeable, becoming more seeing, developing more weaponry for all that revenge and anger. So if any of us, with our cell phones, with our revolvers, with our cars, with our jets, if any of us, with LED flashlights, went back 2,000 years ago and displayed our tech, made predictions about eclipses and stuff, we would all be deities. We would be, relatively speaking, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-doing, all-powerful, perhaps sociopathically angry. Take the average person. And so we have become the gods that we aspired to be. But of course, God is always in the future. Now God is becoming a little bit more feminine, a little more, we want a softer touch, we want a more sensual God. Sex becomes part of the new deity. Back then, God was a virgin and Mary was a virgin. That was what's deified. It's not what would be deified today. Probably handcuffs and interesting BDSM, artifacts. That's the epitome, the new deity. Sensual pleasure, hedonism, freedom to laze around and do nothing, not be all powerful. I don't want to have to win wars. So the deification of things change. And we become what we deify by association. Look at a Trump rally. You get that little pushback from time to time. Do you really want to invite someone to rule the country who believes in grabbing women by the pussy as a sanctioned, institutionalized grope based on money and getting away with it? And plenty of Trump supporters will say, yeah, I wish I could grab some pussy. So it's like, I vote for my ideal. Someone who doesn't have to abide by the rules. Someone who steals and gets away with it. Someone who enjoys their life, does whatever they want. It's like this, for many, is a cult ideal. So you would want to be close to and vote for someone who embodies your ideal, who's greedier than you, bullies more effectively than you, doesn't get caught more than you, rapes people more than you, and like, wow, that's my guy, my deity, my role model. We vote for our role models, we believe in our role models, we aspire to our role models. And we have our role models, those we elect through the cult into leadership. You have the sympathy, the unconditional acceptance. You have the antipathy, the unconditional rebellion. But nothing new is happening here. The game of life is about creating sustainably more intelligent technology of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing. Every pattern is a technology. That's all a technology is. A pattern of code, a pattern of voice is the technology of language. A pattern of printing is the technology of money. It's just a pattern. First we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this, and then this. And then here's some money. We just made it. It's a pattern. That's what it is. That's real money because it follows the pattern defined by who? Well, our pattern, the Federal Reserve. This says this is what is money and all that stuff isn't money. But we've got another pattern. We do it like this and this and this and this. But that's not money. Why? Because we said so. The cult said so. Just interesting bits of paper. I like the drawing of this kid's money better. I like yellow in my money. This kid, a lot of yellow in there, in that money. He calls it money, you call it money. I'd rather have the yellow money. No. It's deviating from the pack, right? You're supposed to stick with the money that is the official pattern, our pattern of coloring bits of paper, rather than your pattern of coloring bits of paper. So you have the norm, the cult norm, the cult dogma. It's that way because it is that way. Well, why don't you print money like this? Well, we don't, so it's not money. That's why. It's not a very good reason. It's just the way it is. So you have the antithesis. But in order for life to win, imagine your life and you want to win. What do you want? You want a lucky 7. You want a lucky 12. 2 6s, right? You want a double 6 to win. Well, you could roll 1 dice. Well, you can't get a double 6 with 1 dice. You're screwed. You're never going to win if your life. Now, if you have 2 dice, you could roll double 6s from time to time, statistically speaking. 1 in 36, statistically speaking, would be a double 6. 6 times 6, 36. You'd keep rolling it and you'd get a double 6 from time to time. But what if you wanted a double 6 guaranteed all the time? Well, how about 10 dice? How about 20 dice? How about 1,000,000 dice? How about 6 billion dice? Now, if you've got 6 billion dice in your nature and you want in your life, and all you want is a double 6, you roll out those 7 billion dice. Now, you can't look at them all at once, but what's your thought? Is there a double 6 somewhere in those billions of dice? Probably. Probably many double 6s. So if your life and you absolutely want to win, if you want to find the winning number and you don't know what it is, you just roll 10 billion dice. It's bound to be in there somewhere. Now, it'll be a minority. It's one of the reasons how we treat our minorities is so important. It will be a minority. There won't be 88% double 6s in those billions. There will be a minority. Maybe 1 in 36 dice will be paired as double 6s. Maybe some of them will be scattered too far, so it's hard to see that they're actually paired. But there will be a lot of 6s in that mix. There will be a lot of 6s. There will be double 6s in billions of dice. Even if they're wrong, even if there was an accident, even if there was a tornado, even if there was bad luck, you're guaranteed to win. And that's life. Guaranteed to win. All life wants to feel sustainably better. All life wants to avoid feeling chronically worse. Every human being wants to feel sustainably better. All human beings want to avoid feeling chronically worse. And we're all different. We're all different. And nature ensures that every single human being is unique. Every single human being has a unique fingerprint. Every single human being has a unique mind, a unique view. Now, if your nature, do you have any doubt that among 6 billion humans, there's 1 or 2 of them that actually have a better way of doing things than the way before? It's impossible. Nature has rigged the game to win. Superior technology does, will, has, and always has emerged out of anomaly, out of diversity. And in order for diversity to occur, you first have to have the sympathy, the openness to what is. That's the leg up. When you're born today, you don't start in the Stone Age. You don't start pre-language. You get all the perks of the entire human experiment in about 10 years, 20 years. The whole download of the species comes into you. Now, you may not be a metal smith, you may not be a nuclear physicist, but if you really want to know that information, you can partner and pair with them and build with that. You can read a book. You got the whole download. And then you go through the sympathy. This is the way it is and the way it has been because that's the way it is. You go along for that to a certain extent, and if you grow up, you rebel. You see the flaw in the system and you rebel. If you grow up, if you stay a child, this is the problem with childhood abuse. If you traumatize a child too much, they may not grow up. They may be too frightened to separate from the abuser. But if you grow up and separate from the abuser, from the cult, from the family, from the father, from the dogma, from the religion, from the government, if you grow up and rebel, you're now in the opposite place of the child. The child accepts everything unconditionally. The adolescent rejects everything reactively. It's all full of shit. I don't want any part of it. Well, if you truly continue that theme, you have to give up language, you have to give up money, you can't drive in a car, because they're all built out of that system. I don't want processed foods. I don't want this. I won't pay taxes. I won't do this. I won't listen to a single thing my parents say. If they say, don't cross the road, I'll cross the road and I'll be dead, right? So life falls apart in the complete reactivity of the adolescent. Life never grows in the complete passivity of the child. So then comes the opportunity to form something new that has never existed before in the synergy of the complete passivity of the child and the complete reactivity of the adolescent. A new third energy, the color that emerges from black and white. A unique personal identity that is an adult that borrows from some of what the adolescent reacts, that borrows from some of what the child accepts, to form something that has never existed before. And this is the game of life. The game of life is to create diversity upon diversity upon diversity, in the absolute certainty that some of that diversity will be dramatically more intelligent, meaning some of that creativity and diversity created by this endless diversification process of sympathy, antipathy, synthesis, sympathy, antipathy, synthesis, of which we are the raw material in the game of life. Some of that will be intelligent, will consume dramatically less energy to create dramatically more sustainable well-being. If there are 1 billion farmers all farming different ways, a few of them are going to get tremendously high yields in their crops just by the law of chance. Nature can't lose. Life can't lose. Some of those farmers are going to get way better yields than other farmers. And the thing is, because we all want to feel sustainably better and we all want to avoid feeling chronically worse, when that occurs, other farmers who see this farmer spending less time to get higher yields are going to say to themselves, the smart ones, you know what? I'm going to stop spending 16-hour days creating a bushel of rice a season, and I'm going to start spending 4-hour days creating 1,000 bushels a season, like this woman, like that guy over there. I'm going to copy what's working. And this is the power of data, the power of the information age that we're in. Because by connecting the world with clear data, we don't just have to decide which of the people in our family to copy. We don't just have to decide which of the people in our neighborhood to copy. We don't just have to decide which of the people in our state to copy, in our country to copy. We can copy anyone in any arena, anywhere in the world, and with writing and video, we don't even have to copy people in the present. We can go back to 1929, as I did when I read the biography of Henry Ford Sr., founder of the Ford Motor Company, and learned the way he managed his own self-styled homeschool program. And I learned from Henry Ford. And I developed a bevy of experts and mentors to consult with. And my education grew in the same way that his did, from reading a book about a man long dead. That's the explosion of possibility in the information age. And the most valuable thing is accurate data. Because accurate data is what allows the observer to decide who to copy, who to serve as the base point, to start with the yes to, then rebel against, and then create something new, more powerful than the original source. And this is the journey of life. This is life's game, and we're a part of it. And life will win whether we do or not. Because we can be one of the ones that lose. We can be one of the people who spend our entire life doing a failed technology that no one wants to copy. And we can serve as useful reference material for other people to learn from our mistakes and win. And life wins, though the ego that we identify with personally does not. Life still wins. But we are a part of life. We are a part of this species. All things are connected. And so as what dies and is recycled, all energy is not created or destroyed, it is transformed. There is a continual upcycling process in the birth and dying, expanding and contraction process that is moving towards grace, that is moving towards sustainable fun, that is moving towards feeling sustainably better and avoiding feeling chronically worse. And that's why we need to start off in complete sympathy, and we need to rebel completely within the system that we're confined. We need to break free completely so that something new, so that nature can win through us, so that life can be born through us as a unique synergy takes place in the synthesis of the unconditional yes and the reactive no, of the child and the adolescent, the synthesis that gives birth to something that has never been, but by definition has a bigger possibility field than either the past out of which we emerged, the past out of which we rejected. It has a bigger possibility field, mathematically speaking. It's the game of life, and it will win. Regardless of what you and I do, it has to win. It's mathematical. We're just one of the players, and we can partner with life and embrace this process. Sympathy, antipathy, synthesis. Sympathy, antipathy, synthesis. And share the data.